Good morning, everybody. My name is Adi Raton, and I am the BDS Shlicha. So I want to introduce you Rabbi Carlos Tapiero. He is going to tell us about the BDS movement. Rabbi Carlos Tapiero is the Deputy Director General of Maccabi World Union. For more than a dozen years, he served as a community director and rabbi of the Jewish community of Guatemala. His general education was gained in Israel, Argentina, Guatemala, and the US, with a BA and MA from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in philosophy and contemporary Jewry, specified in Jewish education and Holocaust studies. Carlos, they all yours.
Hello, guys. I'm immediately sharing my presentation with you. When I was saying that this is something that we're taking very seriously, it is because Maccabi World Union is right now in a program with the Ministry of Strategic Affairs and Public Diplomacy of the State of Israel, working worldwide. We are actually one of the oldest organizations worldwide working with the ministry. The names of the ministry have changed during the years, but it's 11 years since the Minister Yuli Edelstein, then the office of the Prime Minister, and then Minister Erdan, and now Minister Farkas. During all those years, Maccabi World Union has been a partner, worldwide partner with the government of Israel, fighting the delegitimation against the state of Israel. One more thing regarding, a couple of things regarding who we are. First of all, you're looking at the Deputy Director General of an organization, a worldwide organization with 500,000 Jews in 70 countries, more than 400 JCCs and clubs in all continents, a very active organization, which is partnered with BZD, with the Baltimore Zionist Organization. We're working together. And Adi actually is our Shlicha, Maccabi World Union Shlicha at BZD, working so well and so much together with Karen Levin in the development of the organization in Baltimore. So it is as if BZD itself would be presenting this through the partnership of Maccabi World Union. So if you got that, we can continue. Now, we call this program worldwide Ambassadors of Truth. We call that Ambassador of Truth because actually this is fighting a bunch of horrible lies regarding the state of Israel and also the Jewish people. And we will see that at the end of the day, this is a campaign of delegitimation of all connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. And here I'm not talking about how much land, this, that, I'm talking about any connection with the heritage of the Jewish people in national terms. Now, this is the issue we're going to be dealing with. Is BDS a strategic threat to the state of Israel? In a short answer, no today. In a short answer, yes in the future. Okay, so very nice meeting you. Bye-bye. Okay, now I'm back. Now we're going to explain why. Okay, you're going to. I would say, starting with the end. Today, the delegitimation of the state of Israel in terms of the relationship between nations and the Jewish state is a disaster. It's nothing. It has no real effect on the everyday lives of we Israelis or the state of Israel at large. But in terms of the future, how this campaign of delegitimation is being promoted and accepted by the millennials specifically, this is really very bad for our future, because these very young adults in 20, 30 years, they will be leading the world. And if this kind of poison gets in their minds and hearts throughout these years, they will convinced that we are the cause of everything bad in the world, okay? That would be the outline of what we're going to see right now. I guess you know what does BDS mean, but anyways, I'm going through the basics now. BDS means boycott against the state of Israel, disinvestment against everything which is connected with the state of Israel. Okay, if you have an organization, any business. So you don't want to make business with those who make business with Israel. So you take out your monies from that. And sanctions. Sanctions as what? Which kind of sanctions? The kind of sanctions that brought into its knees South Africa. And I'm bringing South Africa specifically because as part of the delegitimation strategy, Israel is compared with apartheid all the time. And probably you have heard, you know about Apartheid Week in most universities and colleges in the US and Canada. And this is also in different levels, but similarly in continental and Europe and in the UK. What is the BDS main message? And I will go into very details on all this. The main message is the creation of the state of Israel was a horrible historical mistake. This is the main message of BDS. But you will see now how it is built. Let's really begin with the basics, okay? Because if the creation of the state of Israel was an historical mistake, it should have never occurred. That means that the Jewish people have no rights on their historical land. We will start talking about their Jewish rights to the land of Israel, which should be obvious. No Italian speaks why Italians have rights on Italy. No French will say why the French people have national rights over France. Okay, we are the only ones who, after 72 years of the creation of the state of Israel, we have to go again and explain again that we are the ones who have the right on the land of Israel. The strategy of those who want to deny our rights as a people are two. First, the Jews are not indigenous to the land of Israel. That's one. Second, the establishment of the state of Israel, as I said before, was an historical mistake by the nations of the world. And I would add a mistake that happened because the world was feeling guilty about what happened to the Jewish people during the Second World War, something that was sold by the Jews with the name of Holocaust, saying that 6 million Jews died there. And actually that was part of the lie of the Zionists, which wanted to conquer the indigenous land of the Palestinians. This is the perverse narrative of those who have it doesn't matter lying today, in the world of social media, facts are not very valued. The important thing is if you're able to promote your message. And this is the main two components of the strategy of delegitimation of the state of Israel. So we're going right now to speak about the Jewish rights to a nation state in the Jewish land of the Jewish people, the land of Israel. There are 5 axes to understand the rights of the Jewish people to have their historical native land of Israel as the nation state for the Jewish people. 5 axes. Historical rights, legal rights, the self-determination rights, religious rights, and existential and effective rights. We're going one by one. So let's go first regarding our historical rights. If you have been there, you have seen with your eyes, you have walked with your legs, okay? You're embraced with your arms the irrefutable archaeological evidence that remains through the length and breadth of the land of Israel of, 1, the establishment of the national life of the Jewish people during both the first and the second temple period. We're talking about the 1,500 years period. It's a huge period, okay? Starting 1,300 before the Common Area to the 2nd century of the Common Area. That's being directly connected, but also you saw the permanent Jewish presence in the land of Israel, even after the loss of Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. So Jews never left the land of Israel, even when they were expulsed, killed, persecuted once and again in the land of Israel. There's this small place, Pekin, that we have the same family going for 2,000 years, but it's not only Pekin. I'm going to give more details in the future. So this is the way, take a look at the map. This is the way Israel looked at the time of King David. Okay, what you see in fuchsia, in pink, is hardcore Israel. That is Israel hardcore. If you have any idea, if we would have this presentation and I would be in your presence, I will be showing you, but the pink on the left is more or less Israel today. And but as you can see, with the conquered kingdoms and the vassal kingdoms, Israel was including Jordanian of today, including Syria, including parts of Iraq, most of Iraq. Okay, it was huge. Okay, at the time of King David. All right, and we have about this. Okay, and this is something that I studied. Okay, about this, you have evidence also in the writings and archaeological evidence also of our neighbors, not only on our side. Okay. And now, what I'm going to say right now, perhaps this is the most important slide of all the slides that I have here. I have only 850 slides here, so no, don't worry, not so much. Okay, but this is the most important one. We, the Jewish people, are the only people who developed in the land of Israel all institutions of an independent national sovereignty. A national capital, Jerusalem, and a government, the kingdom, the legislature and judicial court, the Sanhedrin, the judges, the military command, and the spiritual center of worship, the great temple. The only people during all the conquers on the land of Israel were the only ones doing this. The only people who developed a national language, Hebrew, exclusive to our nation and to that land. And a code of life applicable only to this nation, which includes relationships with other members, the Torah, written and oral. So all the other peoples who conquered the land of Israel did nothing of what I said. Not the Assyrians, not the Babylonians, not the Greeks, not the Romans, not the Byzantines, not the Arabs, not the Crusaders, not the Mamelukes, not the Ottomans, and not the British. All of them conquered at some point of history the land of Israel, but the land of Israel was part of a larger conquer, regional conquer. No people developed all these components, which are the basic components of any people regarding their own ownership of any land. This is crucial. These are our historical rights. This is them again, and we have proof of this. And we have historical, archaeological proof on this. So we are the native people. I'm coming again to that. The Jewish people are the native people of the land of Israel. This is the crucial thing. And one of the basic arguments of delegitimation of the Jewish people says that we are not. We are Europeans that conquer the native land of the Palestinians, which is ludicrous. Okay, and I'm saying now in brackets, most Palestinians were not born in the land of Israel. Were born in Egypt, were born in what's today Jordanian, that was Transjordanian. When Jews started the colonization in 1882 of the land of Israel, I'll go into that in a minute, many Arabs came from all over the region to find jobs where the Jews were. In the same fashion, then when Africa became a disaster, many Africans, I'm talking about the last 20 years, tried to get into Israel. That's why we have 300,000 Africans living today, mainly in the south of Tel Aviv, because they were looking for a better life for themselves till Israel built some kind of a border, protected border. So this is regarding historical rights. Regarding legal rights, we did not take the land of Israel by force. We did it because the world during the 20th century recognized, not gave, the rights of the Jewish people on their historical national land. The first thing was under the British Empire, 1917, as you know, the Balfour Declaration, okay? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the British Empire comes with a document which says the Queen saw in good eyes the creation of a home for the Jewish people. And then, Haftet November, okay, the 29th of November, 1947, the United Nations, after the Holocaust, after that 1/3 of all the Jewish people were murdered in the camps in Europe, again recognized that there was a right for the Jewish people to live in their national land as a nation state. So this is, take a look, this is the promise of the mandate for Palestine by the British. That was supposed to be the Jewish state. Take a look. Okay? Now, because of the pressure of the horrible demands of the Arab world, 76% of the land passed to Palestinian state for the Arabs. So on your right, there would be the Jewish Palestine. I'm sorry, on your left, the Jewish Palestine in white. On your right, the Arab Palestine for the Arabs. How is that called? What's today in yellow? How this is called? Jordan. So Jordan is already one Palestinian state for the Palestinian people, where 70% of all Palestinians live, of all the population of Jordan live in Jordan. The majority, the vast majority of the Jordanian population are Palestinian, 70%. The Queen is Palestinian, okay? If you know a little about royalty in Jordan. We were supposed to get this, but then only a couple of years later, they cut it in about a quarter for the Jewish people. And what was the answer of the Jewish leadership? They said, yes, okay, we're accepting this. Then, after November, the 29th of November 1947, they said, okay, you know what? Let's try to work again, and let's create a second Palestinian state besides Jordan. So what's in white here in the map, that would be the new Jewish state, and what's more or less in gray here, that would be the new second Palestinian state or Arab state. What was the answer of Ben-Gurion and the Jewish leadership? Yes. What was the answer of the Arab nations? There were no Palestinian people at that time. No one would define themselves as Palestinian Arabs. Okay, the Palestinians at that time were the Jews. They called themselves Palestinian Jews. But anyways, a second Arab state there, it was supposed to be there. The Arab world said no. And then, as you know, on the 14th of March, Israel was attacked, and nearly 1 year later, you see the result of the war. Israel became, till today, more or less what you see here in light blue. Okay, so you see Gaza in red, the West Bank in orange, okay, and this is more or less Israel today. So actually, Israel today is the result of the victory of the Jewish people who were attacked by 7 countries, okay, Arab countries, neighboring countries. Okay, that's the result today. That's what we have. And this ceasefire was recognized worldwide as the limits of the state of Israel. As you remember, in 1967, we were attacked. Nasser was calling, the president of Egypt was calling for the destruction of the Jewish people, a second Holocaust. And what you see in green here is the result of the great victory of the Jewish people. As you remember, the Sinai was given to Egypt just to make peace, okay? And you have Gaza, which was given to the Palestinians in 2005 in order to start some kind of autonomy there and living in peace. It was supposed to be the Singapore of the Arab world, and what turned to be was tens of thousands of missiles against Israel. All the production, the common production between the two countries, between the two peoples, completely destroyed by the Palestinians, and lots of channels of terror. So just take a look also at the picture of Israel in the Middle East. If people who speak about Israel, many times I show this map without names, and I ask them, show me where Israel is. You know, they don't know what to show me, and for sure they will show me Sudan or Saudi Arabia. They cannot think that this powerful country is that small line that you cannot see on the map. Especially when I do this, when I ask them, show me in this phone, okay, the map, okay, and they don't find it, okay. So that's how ignorant the world is about a country which everybody speaks about and know nothing about. This is more or less Israel today, as you see the Golan Heights, are an inclusive part of Israel. The Gaza Strip is completely autonomic for 15 years, okay, bringing only terror. And with the West Bank is the thing we're still, and Gaza, of course, we're still speaking about with the Palestinians to try to reach an agreement. I'm going to speak about that. So third axe, the self-determination rights. All peoples have the right of self-determination. 70 years ago, you will ask somebody speaking Arabic in Jerusalem, where are you in terms of your national self? They will say, I am an Arab. He will never say, or she will never say, I'm a Palestinian. 70 years ago, there were no Palestinian people. No, none. Today, for sure, there are Palestinian people. Today, there's a large group of a few millions who define themselves Palestinian in a national way. So if the Palestinians, who are probably the latest people in the world, are recognized as a people, how come we cannot define ourselves as a people? Do you know that in many American universities, Canadian universities, we the Jews are denied of being a nation? Professors of anthropology and sociology are teaching that the Jews were not a nation, we're not a people. We are this kind of religion that developed, that disappeared, but developed again because of the Khazars in the middle of in the center of Western, of Asia, Europe, okay? Something which is not only disgusting, not only a lie, it's an insult. If all peoples have the right to define themselves, how come we cannot? This is a proof of anti-Semitism, nothing else. Religious rights. Now you will say, well, Carlos, you're a rabbi. Of course you're going to speak about religion, but I cannot go to people and speak about my religious rights. Wrong. You can speak with Christians who do care about their Christianity, about the bond, the national bond of the Jewish people with the land of Israel. Of course you can speak about that. When the Jewish people are denied of any connection with the land of Israel, what is that they're saying to Christianity? Simple, that Jesus was never born, that Christianity is a lie, and there was nothing like that. When the deniers of the connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel say that there was never a Temple Mount, never a great temple for the Jewish people in Jerusalem, they're saying that Jesus was never there and never confronted the priests, the Jewish priests there. So we have, and I work worldwide. I can tell you an example in South Africa, the most anti-Israeli Western country in the world, okay? We worked with 1,200 Christian leaders who represent 34 million South Africans. And the moment I take a Bible, I can take one from here, I'm at my office, and I said there, who's with me to protect our Bible? In the general hall of the Johannesburg municipality, at that time there was 1 out of 5 conferences, 700 leaders, Christian leaders, stand up and they said, me, I am together with you. So when the Christian people understand, Christians all over the world, that the denial of the connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel hurts Christianity in the same fashion, so they themselves come and fight the fight with us. And this is not something small, because still they are a couple of billions in the world, okay? So the moment the Christian world understands this, they are very good partners with us. And just for you to know, in the Hebrew Bible, Jerusalem is named 670 times when it's not named at all in the Quran. It's mentioned as the place ordained by God for the establishment of the national Jewish life, the land that God gave in heritage to the Jewish people through Avraham Avinu 4,000 years ago. the religious, spiritual, political, military capital of Jewish people, and so on and so on. Finally, in terms of our rights, the existential effective rights. Since 1847, when the first official service were done in Jerusalem, Jerusalem had a Jewish majority in its city, the city of Jerusalem, since 1847. Since the science of polls of service existed, it's proved that Jews were a majority in Jerusalem. Okay? So this is not a small thing. Okay, when we are denied of the connection of our people with the land of Israel, we can prove 170 years ago that we were then already a majority, of course, and before that, of course. But at least we have that proof. And since 1882, Jews from all over the world came to the land of Israel, a land described by Mark Twain as a deserted land, as a land in disgrace, and rebuilt and replanted the land of Israel from in all corners. So these are our 5 axes when we want to speak about our rights of a nation state over the land of Israel. So returning to BDS, what's the BDS strategy? So I'm saying right now, it's a strategy based on deceiving and openly lying, like that. Truth, and this is something which is said, Ilan Pape, all countries have anarchists, people who desire to destroy the country. All countries, we have our own. Ilan Pape, at the Professor Ilan Pape, at the Haifa University, okay, when confronted with some of his lies, okay, against the rights of the Jewish people of a national state on the land of Israel, he confessed. He said, you know what? I have a political agenda. That is more important than facts themselves. So facts are not important for BDS. What is important? So let's go for this. Would you like to play for a second with me? Okay. Okay. I want for you to raise your hands, okay, on these questions. If you agree, raise your hand. Who is here in favor of human rights? Who wants equality between peoples? Who is against colonialism? You see how idiotic these questions are, okay? It's who thinks that loving mom and dad is a good thing, okay? These are the kind of stupid questions. Who is fed up with the conflict between Palestinians and Israelis? Me! All right? Watch out, because the BDS is after you. If you answer yes to all these things, they will, especially if you know nothing about the conflict between the Palestinians and Israel, which is not the Middle East conflict. I want to say something in brackets here, which is very important. Many times people speak about the Middle East conflict. And when you ask them, what are you talking about? Which conflict? They say, the conflict between the Palestinians and Israel. I immediately answer, are you an idiot? Are you so ignorant to say that the problem in the Middle East is the small conflict between Palestinians and Israelis, a small conflict we are trying to reach to an end for 28 years, okay, since the Oslo agreements, okay, that we sit down in negotiations. Very bad, but we sit down. That's the problem of the Middle East. It's not the problem between Shiites and Sunnites. It's not the problem of Iran trying to destroy everything which is not them. That's the Middle East conflict. So these kind of expressions have a meaning again of delegitimize Israel. They, the Jews, the same kind of hatred. They are the reason of the disasters in the world. Okay, so let me show how this works. The world understood at the beginning of the 21st century that Israel could not be destroyed by military power. Regarding that, there are 2 kinds of reactions: the acceptance and the non-acceptance. Those who accepted that fact made peace with Israel. Who are the examples? Very simple, which are the examples, very simple. Egypt, 1979, and Jordan, 1994. Those are the two examples. Both in one, Sadat, the president, and the King Hussein, father, both of them loved their people. They understood that it was better for the peoples to make peace that would bring their nations in a coalition with the Western world and with the United States. So they said, let's make negotiations, let's get peace. And they got peace and they got everything they asked for. Egypt, all the Sinai back. And we said, all right, take even the oil there that Israel found. Take everything, just let's have peace, and we have peace. The non-acceptance brought to two kinds of reactions. One is terror, and the other one started in Durban, in South Africa in 2001, when the Conference for Human Rights was hitchhiking by the delegitimators of Israel, and BDS, the boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions movement started, although it was officially founded in 2005. So BDS is a strategy to destroy the state of Israel. In the eyes of the world, the legitimacy of the existence of all the state of Israel, not a part of, as a result of the understanding that Israel cannot be destroyed by military means. So you build a narrative. The narrative says Israel is evil and has three components. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel expulsed and abused the Palestinians at the creation of Israel. And Israel is a colonial state, European colonial state, against the native people who are the Palestinians. That's the strategy. They say we have three aims. I put them in different order, okay? Recognizing, I'm quoting the BDS chart, recognizing the fundamental rights of Arab Palestinian citizens of Israel to full equality. In a second, I'm going to refer to them. Respecting, protecting, and promoting the rights of the Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and properties as stipulated, ending the occupation and colonization of all Arab lands and dismantling the wall. Here, first of all, these three principles, if you want, the three of them can be understood in completely different ways. And I'm going to refer to them. Okay, let's first to end the presence of Israel in the West Bank. Okay, BDS does not specifically state that occupation refers to the West Bank of any other part of Israel. So if you are American Jews who want to say, you know what, we want to reach the two-state solution. And can I say to you something now? In brackets, I want and I believe we need a two-state solution. That's my own belief. Second, I am pro-Palestinian. I care about the Palestinian people. But BDS doesn't care about the Palestinian people. BDS wants to destroy the Jewish state. This is two different things. Most Israelis, I'm coming to that in a moment, most Israelis want peace now. And I'll prove that to you in a second. So, but here, when they speak about occupation, when you see any Palestinian map, no matter of the Palestinian Authority today, it's not the West Bank and Gaza. It's all Israel. So BDS prefers to remain ambiguous, not wishing to deter the moderate, but holding on to the extremist aims. So if you're moderate, they can work on you. They will deceive you, and they will bring you in, because we promote anti-colonialism, human rights, and so on and so on. But now you will see also by words, you will listen the founders of BDS saying what they think about the Jewish state. You will see they are everywhere in YouTube. You will see now. Second, a call for equality within Israel itself, and third, a call for the rights of the refugees to return. I'm going one by one. The issue of the division of the land of Israel, okay? For that, we don't need any boycott. We're working on that for 28 years, since the Oslo Accords in 1992, okay? We are working on that. We want to reach a solution. We Israelis do believe two countries for two peoples. Who are the ones who don't believe that? The Palestinians. They say, no, a nation state only for us, and a general state, no Jewish state, where we want I'm going to the next point here to refer to refugee issue. Okay, they say all Palestinians who are defined as refugees, okay, which is in itself, this is such a disgusting and perverse issue, because refugees in any place in the world are one generation, and the countries who have the refugees turn them into their own nations. The Palestinians are the only people in the world that they have 4 generations of refugees. Like the grandchild is still a refugee. They're not Jordanians and Lebanese, okay? So we already offered the solution for refugees. Of course, not coming into Israel, okay? But to have a compensation. And I have some miscellaneous slides if we have time, okay? They themselves, they say that they were 711,000 refugees, Palestinian refugees. We were from Arab countries, 850,000. So let's make compensation for all of us, them and us. And third, if we talk about the Israeli Arabs, so I'm stating now, and this is a fact, Israeli Arabs have completely equal rights than any other Israeli citizen. Of course, there's some discrimination. Okay, I'm not. It disgusts me, racism in Israel. Okay, we didn't build a country to have racism in it, but we combat our racism. Okay, is there some racism against Arabs? Of course, and for some part of the populations, of course. But regarding rights, the rights are equal rights, 100% equal rights. So let's talk about what they say. No. I'm sorry. I wasn't speaking about Israeli Arabs. I was talking about Arabs in the West Bank. They don't have enough rights. They live in apartheid. No, idiot. No, they cannot live in apartheid when Israel didn't take over the West Bank, didn't include the West Bank as part of Israel today. It's a land which is right now into discussion. And for many years, I will show you how many, we are trying to reach an agreement. And the Arab world and the Palestinians today don't want any agreement. I'm going to show and prove that. So if we're talking about that Israeli all sorts of lies that do nothing regarding apartheid in the West. So I said, no, sorry, it's not that. It's about human rights. I love the Palestinians, so I want for them the best. So you know what? And now I'm being serious when I'm saying this. My brother is an American citizen. He lives in America for over 30 years. I was born in Argentina. We were born in Argentina. I'm Israeli, okay? And he donates to all sorts of causes, also to dolphins, to protect the dolphins of the world. So I can understand that somebody in the world, anybody, would want to support the Palestinians as my brothers support Jewish communities and dolphins. Everybody has the right to support whoever he wants or whatever he wants, she wants. But if you really are protecting Palestinian human rights, why do you start with Israel? Why don't you start with Lebanon, where Palestinians live really under apartheid? Why don't you start in Jordan, in the camps of Jordan, where Palestinians nearly live better than Lebanon, but nearly live under apartheid? In Israel, where the Palestinian population is the most cultured Arab population in the world after Israeli Arabs, okay, with 37 universities built by Israel since 1967, you're going to start, when we want to protect the Palestinian people, you're going to start against Israel. That's hypocrisy. If you care about the Palestinian people, start with the Palestinian people all over the world, okay? This is not universalism, okay? Those who support BDS, they are not universalists, okay? So what is that the real BDS movement wants? The BDS movement is not a pro-Palestinian movement. It does nothing to build, create, invest, assist, or promote Palestinian interests at all. It doesn't even operate in some areas where Palestinians are suffering grave oppression. BDS made Palestinians in the West Bank suffer from the loss of jobs. BDS is a movement that is explicitly anti-Israel and focuses only on that. It exists well within the non-acceptance camp that I showed you a few slides before. It seeks, as did the armies, the destruction of the Jewish state. And just like in 1948, their leaders do not care what price the Palestinians have to pay for that. If you take a look who's in the Israel-hating camp, what merges them all is anti-Semitism. Human rights is the edited part of the cake, and there you have virtual signalers, Islamists, conspiracy theorists, anti-nationalists, anarchists, and so on and so on. That anti-Semitism is a glue that holds the entire BDS movement. That's why you have people from the extreme right and extreme left and all sorts of anarchists in the middle. Now, why this is having such an impact in Europe, in Western Europe? This is because Europe is so guilty about the Holocaust, its colonialism, racism that they created, and apartheid. All these are products of Europe. How do you eliminate these ghosts? By turning the victim into the victimizer. If Israel is a Nazi, racist, colonialist, and apartheid country, so we were not so bad, guys. Let's hate the Jews, and let's hate the Jewish state. And this is working very well. In an anti-racist strike about a week ago, or even less, 6 days ago, in France, what they were shouting, Juif sale, Juif sale. The same words that were shouted in 1895 against Dreyfus. Dirty Jews. That's simply old anti-Semitism. Now, this map is a very important map because lies don't matter. You will use everything in order to promote your agenda. And this is what the Palestinians are doing. They start, have you ever seen this map? This is a very important map. This map, some governments use this map, which is based in, the first map is the basic lie. They say in 1946, everything which is green, okay, that was the Palestinian state. So I said, no, my brother, no. 1946, that part, okay, that was part of the colonialist entity of the British Empire. They called that Palestine. There was no Palestinian Arab state. Most of the country was completely empty. There were towns where Arabs lived, okay? This is no Palestinian nothing at that time. And of course, no Palestinian consciousness of any people, okay? So they start with that lie and they go on. A few years ago, I was visiting Amsterdam. I traveled all over the world with our work. I went to some of the main squares in Amsterdam, and this very nice 65, 67 years old Dutch, young guy, old guy, respectful guy, tall guy, has these maps and promoting hatred against Israel. He's a Dutch, okay? And I approached him and said, do you understand that this is a complete fabrication, that this is a lie? Do you understand that? Okay, you're promoting hatred towards the same people that were killed also here in Amsterdam, and were collaboration of the Dutch people promoted the death of Anna Frank that you so much bring into the consciousness of your own people today. Do you understand what you're doing? These maps are one of the ways the Palestinians use to promote the denial of the very existence of the state of Israel, while promoting also a lie. This is the guy who founded the BDS. It's a co-founder. His name is Omar Barghouti. Okay? Now, he says that Israel is an apartheid country. Apartheid in South Africa meant that a black South African couldn't be in the same buses than whites, going to the same schools, walking in the same streets, on the same side of the streets, going to the same hospitals, going to the same bathrooms, fill any position in the South African government, and so on and so on. He says Israel is an apartheid country, and you know what this picture was taken in the Tel Aviv University, where he got his doctorate. Okay, so like you're saying, okay, Can you be more hypocritical than this? Okay, more liar than this? And here, just listen to his words. Is it BDS a movement that promotes 2 countries for 2 nations? Listen to him, please.
Definitely, most definitely, we oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. No Palestinian, rational Palestinian, not a sellout Palestinian, will ever accept a Jewish state in Palestine.
No Palestinian will ever accept the existence of a Jewish state in any part of Palestine. Quoting him, listen to him again, and listen to the other co-founder, okay?
The two-state solution, as typically expressed, is nothing more than a last-ditch plan to save Zionism.
I clearly do not buy into the two-state solution. It is not just pragmatically impossible now, it was never a moral solution to start with.
Clear? Clear? When your friends in the Jewish community say, you know what, I support BDS because I want to support a peace movement. I say, guys, I support the peace movement today. I'm doing that. But that's not what BDS does. Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, the president of the Palestinian Authority, about 6 months ago, okay, stated, okay, that Europe sent the Jews to Palestine. Listen to this. Europe sent the Jews to Palestine to establish a colonial settlement, okay? So the Jews are aliens to the land of Israel. This is today, guys. This is the guy who should be sitting down with us to make peace and create the Palestinian state for his own people. So the BDS movement does not serve the Palestinian cause. It does not want to finish the Palestinian-Israel conflict. It just aspires to destroy the Jewish state. These are some of their quotes. We oppose the Jewish state. The real aim of BDS is to bring down the state of Israel. BDS does mean the end of the Jewish state. BDS will help bring about the defeat of Zionist Israel and victory for Palestine. Shoot the Jew, they chant, okay? And what is the most famous one in America? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What's the river? Jordan River. What's the sea? The Mediterranean. So it's everything. It's taking down the state of Israel. That's the BDS claim. How Israelis relate to the conflict with Palestinians? We want peace. For the last 2 decades, polls, 70–80% of Israelis want to reach a final agreement with the Palestinians. We want 2 countries for 2 nations. We want that. We want shalom, peace, immediate peace negotiations. Take a look, please, at the table. This is very important. 8 times they say no. 8 times they said no to a Palestinian state. The Peel Commission in 1937, they said no. The UN partition, I spoke about half 10th of November. The 1947, they said no. The Khartoum Accords after the 6 Days War, 1967, they say no. 2000 in Camp David, President Clinton, Arafat, Ehud Barak. Okay, I had a friend there of the Israeli delegation, and Clinton started shouting at Arafat. He never loses it, but that time he lost it. He was red shouting to Arafat. Sign the agreement. You have a country for your people. Sign the agreement. And Arafat, looking at nothing, okay, of course, did nothing. The Taba, while what was going on, the second Intifada, they said no, 2001. Olmert came and gave an offer, and a huge offer. 2008, they said no. Netanyahu, since 2013, they said no. And now President Trump, 2020, they said no. No, 8 times no. And with this, I'm finishing. When George Floyd was assassinated in Illinois, okay, when I saw that tape, I cried as everybody else. What did the Palestinian Authority do immediately? They published in their official newspaper this cartoon that you see here, saying, you know, American police do to African Americans what the Israelis are doing to Israelis. I don't know if you know who Iyad Halak was. This was a disaster that happened here in Israel. This was a 32 years old East Jerusalem Arab who was confused as a terrorist. He was killed by Jerusalem policemen. And he was he was a handicapped young person. I have in my own family, one of my children is a handicapped person. When that happened to Yad Halak, I cried for a week, I promise you, every day, okay? But as I did, most Israelis did. We saw in that disaster a horrible thing that happened. And if that policeman is found guilty, he will go to jail. He will go to jail. And all Israelis will be proud of that. Because this was a disaster. But using that tragedy to say that, you know, everything bad in the world is Israel, that's disgusting. And this is called intersectionality. Using the US campaign for Palestinian rights, okay, they say, well, what do you expect of American police? They're trained by Israelis, which is a lie. They're trained by Israelis. So the Israelis told how to abuse Afro-Americans. Okay, do you remember this picture? Do you remember this picture? This is one of the most iconic pictures of African American liberation. This picture was taken in Selma. Okay, did you see the Selma picture? I saw it. And at that iconic moment that I was expecting to see Rabbi Avram Yeshua Heschel and Rabbi Wise crossing the bridge into Selma, okay? And I saw the picture. I didn't see them. The picture, I'm talking about the picture released 2 years ago. The Jews were taken to the second line, not the first line. The Jews were leading the fight of African Americans. And now in the new narrative of Black Lives Matter, they were not part of that. They're hidden. We are the killers. And you know that at the Black Lives Matter, in their platform, Israel is described as an apartheid state committing genocide against the Palestinian people. How can I hashtag Black Lives Matter at George Floyd's assassination? I would like African American lives matter, but I cannot be part of a movement which is saying that my country is an apartheid country. How they dare to say that? And how they take out the Jews of the fighting of African Americans in America. It's disgusting, and it's a lie, and it's a flagrant lie. And this is part of this, all these actions. How you can be an advocate for Israel? Give details about the Jewish historical rights on the land of Israel. Show all sides of Israeli Arab participation in Israeli society. Bring a few examples of Israel's threats on its everyday basis. Bring a few examples of grossly biased media. Okay, go into the core of Palestinian propaganda and show how deceitful it is. Show the maps of Palestine, for instance. Figures like the Pope says that attacks against Israel are anti-Semitism. And finally, point out that the Palestinians said no to any peace proposal. Okay, BDS exists in the destroy Israel paradigm. I explained before. BDS has no social brain. BDS is contradictory and hypocritical. BDS needs to convert people, not tell the truth. BDS deflates the atmosphere for negotiations and peace. BDS is anti-Israel, not pro-Palestinian. BDS is not supported by the historical narrative. The opposite is truth. Criticizing Israel today, criticizing the state of Israel's policies in the same fashion all countries are criticized, is legitimate. That, of course, is legitimate. Criticizing the very existence of the state of Israel, that's anti-Semitism. These are my details if you want to be in contact with me, okay? And these are who we are, Maccabi World Union. We are working for the strengthening of our ideals, Jewish continuity, and Zionism. Sorry for being 2 minutes late, okay, on the exposition, okay? And we started on time, really on time. So thank you so much for, all right. Thank you guys for attending. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Carlos.
Shalom, kol tov, להתראות.